We're going to begin by building out our PHP file. So I've made a new file called formparser.php. I just have some basic HTML on my page, and we're going to get started. Now, before I actually build the actual page, I did just want to remind you a little bit about concatenation. We talked about concatenation before, and this is a really useful concept, and I want to make sure that you understand it before we start to script our form. So concatenation refers to appending one item onto another. In programming, we concatenate strings in PHP by using the period. That's the operator for performing this particular action. So we could do something like this, where we have two variables, S1 and S2, and they're both equal to a string of text. And then I have a third variable called greeting, and as you can see, I'm making greeting the result of concatenating these two together. So if I wanted to see this on the page, I could just echo out greeting, and if we save this and look at it in the browser, you can see that it does say hello world. Now, because of the way in which PHP deals with variables, we would actually get the same effect by writing something like this. Instead of using the concatenation with the period, it is possible that I actually just write the statement like this, where I put the variable names inside of double quotes. So if we comment out the first instance of greeting and just have the second one, and I refresh, we're going to get the same results in our HTML page. Now, this code does work because PHP is going to replace the variables within the double quotation marks with their value. However, the first method that I showed you, that's kind of the more formal method of using the period to concatenate the strings, and that's more commonly used and it's recommended. It's going to be a lot more obvious in your code that you're actually concatenating or adding the strings together. One other method that we have of concatenation is to use the concatenation assignment variable. And the concatenation assignment variable looks like this. So I'm just going to change the variables here. I'm going to get rid of greeting, and we're going to say S1 and have this equal to world, and then I'm going to use S1 again, and we're going to say dot equal or period equal to world. And so if we echo out the value of S1 on the page, again, we're just going to get hello world. So the second line right here roughly means assign to greeting its current value, which is currently hello, plus the concatenation of whatever the new string is, in this case, world. So our HTML file that we built earlier has several string variables that we're collecting: first name, last name, email, and comments. And we're going to be sending those variables to our PHP file here. And it makes sense that we would probably want to concatenate the first and last names. So while we write the script, we're going to be using some concatenation. I'll just get rid of this because this isn't something that I actually want to do within my script, but I just wanted to go through concatenation. All right, the first thing that we want to do is we're going to want to retrieve the values from the post array, and we're going to do this by creating some variables. So because our form is using the post method right here, all of the form data is going to be available by using our post array, and I have variables for first name, last name, and comments, and I'm just using the post array to retrieve that information. In this example, I don't have a line for the email address because I'm not going to be using that yet, but if you wanted to, you could replicate the same code to reference that value as well. We're going to next create another variable, and this is going to be the name variable, and we're going to use concatenation to concatenate our first and last name together. So I'll do that, and I'm going to concatenate my first and last name, but I want a space to be between them, so I'm going to use the concatenation operator, and I'll print an empty space, and then I'll retrieve the value for the last name. So the act of concatenation is simply going to take two variables plus a space, and it's going to join them together to create a new variable called name. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to print out a message to the user. So I'm going to use my print statement to do that. This message is going to report back to the user what was entered from the form. So if somebody entered John Smith, it's going to say, "Thank you, John Smith, for your comments." And then it's going to print whatever comments they added in our comments field. So if we save this, it should actually work. I'm going to go back to my HTML form and I'll fill this out. So I've filled out some information. I'm going to click send it. And as you can see, the results are going to be, "Thank you, Joe Smith, for your comments." And here's the comment. And it is worth noting that you can link as many strings as you want to together. You can using concatenation. You can even join numbers to strings. So we don't have any numbers, but if we did have some other number variable, we could concatenate that in as well. And that's because PHP is weakly typed, is what it's called. And that means that the variables aren't locked into one particular format. So if we did create a number, just so we have something to use as an example, and I just make this equal to some sort of number, I could use concatenation here, and let's just print a space between the last and first name and the number. So if I was to refresh this page right here, it's going to say Joe Smith 12, which of course doesn't make sense, but I just wanted to show you that because PHP is weakly typed, meaning that the variables aren't locked to one particular format, here our number variable is going to be turned into a string and appended to the value of whatever the new string variable is, in this case name. I'm going to get rid of that because we don't want that to be part of our script. And that just shows you the basic PHP code that we'll need to be able to parse this information from our form. We're going to look at some other ways in the next few movies that we can handle strings, and we'll be able to use some different functions to be able to format how the information is parsed by the form.